I'll concede your point just for brevity, but
What? Brevity? We don't do that around here. It's probably
No.
Citrus, or what is a Capital One Bowl? It used to be Citrus Bowl, right?
oh my
Capital
god,
One.
dude, where have you been?
I just like the real name.
It hasn't been the Citrus Bowl since like what, 2002?
What was your highlight side dish from Thanksgiving?
Oh gosh, Scotch.
This is the Buck Around, the podcast devoted to all things Wisconsin Badger football from a fan perspective. Featuring your hosts, Richard Branch and Maxwell Brusky.
And hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Buck Around. Welcome back to episode 354 of the Buck Around. I am one half of said Buck Around, Richard Branch, and I am joined by my, what are we going to go with? Oh, since we were just talking about it, experimental colleague, Maxwell
Love it.
Brusky. Max, how are you?
Feeling very experimental today.
It's been a minute, hasn't it?
It has, but it's summer.
It is summer. It has been a very quiet summer for everyone.
Yeah,
But we're here. We're back.
we are indeed.
I mean, and I know why we're back. Media days are upon us. It's so exciting, right? I
I
mean,
love we're going to talk about media days, aren't we?
yes, we're going to be doing an experiment today, just so you all know. I'll say this at the top so everybody
Yeah.
hears it and they don't yell at us. We're doing an experiment. It is lunchtime on Tuesday, July 22nd. Media days, I think, start in, I think it's at 1 o'clock Central. So yeah, in an hour and 45 minutes. Definitely after we're done recording.
I think the boss comes on first in about 2 hours. Yeah,
Is it today or tomorrow? I thought I saw
It's
something that
today.
said it was tomorrow. Oh,
it's
okay.
today. I don't think Fickle's on until tomorrow, maybe Thursday, but definitely not today.
Oh, no, it says. I mean, according to, let's see, who's this? Cam Wilhorn, it's 2 p.m. tomorrow? Is that the way he's explaining it?
For Coach Fickle? Yeah.
It says
Okay.
Badgers won't be in front of a mic until Wednesday. Luke Fickle at 2 p.m. Central, Edwards, Hallman, and Renfro, 5 p.m. Central. So even still, just so everybody knows, we are recording this at Tuesday at lunchtime. You won't probably hear this until Thursday, just in terms of the turnaround on the editing side of things. So
Mhm.
our experiment is to see if this show becomes completely irrelevant after, because we have no knowledge. Like, you're going to hear us speaking to you from the past. And you, dear listener, are going to have the luxury of 2020 Big Ten Media Days hindsight to test this experiment, which we will get into what it is when we get to Media Days.
Well, I'm going to do this, okay? I have I have two things to say right now. The second should be a pretty decent segue. The first is that neither of us even knew when Coach Fickle was talking.
Correct.
Okay, that's one thing. The second is that media days are a lot less fun when your team is picked 12th. And
Perhaps.
I'm saying that and sticking to it, and I think that's a good segue to our first topic.
Yes. So, should I lay out the ground rules? Because I might actually argue that point in a bit, but
Okay.
let's take
Yeah.
it.
No. I suspected you might.
I don't disagree, but don't wholeheartedly agree, I guess would be the term. But anyways, what we wanted to do today, we were going to record anyways when we both realized, oh my gosh, Media Days is this week.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Forgot about that.
Oh my god.
But as I think it's fair to say, the general consensus on the Badgers, with that, as you alluded to, the media picking the Badgers to finish 12th in the conference in their little preseason poll, is the Badgers are looking at bowl eligibility-ish, right? So 6-6-ish is the consensus expectation for the Badgers of the state of Wisconsin this year. And we, that being you and I, thought it might be an interesting exercise. Actually, let me rephrase that. I can't take any credit on this. This was a good idea you had, which is, why don't we have a discussion and each of us come to the table with our ideas for how we might expect the Badgers to either overperform or underperform expectations this year. And sort of if I'm characterizing this right, sort of the pathway for that to happen. Is that what
Yeah.
you're thinking? How does the team look?
I think that's best. Yeah.
If it goes
Yeah.
8-4 or 9-3, how does it get to 8-4 and 9-3? What happens?
Right.
What happens that we don't expect? And if they're 3-9, how do they get to 3-9 or 4-8? What
Yeah.
makes that happen? Is that a fair way to explain
I
it?
think so. Yeah, I think so.
All right. Because you got me thinking about this, because you posited this I think mid last week, and I have stewed on it and stewed on it, and I may have overthought it, as I am wont to do. Yeah, let's do this. So, how do we want to start? Do we want to start with the overperformance? Do we start happy? Do we start sad? Who goes first, Max? This is your exercise. I yield the floor.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm just going to get right into it. Okay. And
Okay.
we can kind of branch off with, best case, worst case, if you want to call it that, because I'm going to put this in the context of, the annual Phil Steele preview guide that, I got a little bit later than usual. Okay. And then when I opened it up, I see what everybody else sees. And I think the Big Ten media sees as well. And then I looked at the position units where we did this exercise before the Alabama game last year. And when you looked at the talent ratings, at least as far as Phil's concerned, they had some in the out of the, with descriptions. So it's like top 15. I can't remember. I think it might have been offensive line. But either way, when you kind of compared, even with Alabama before the game, it wasn't like a total mismatch. You look at this year, they didn't have a single position unit in the description portion. Not a single one.
Where he ranks, what is it, like the top 30
No, it's usually like the
quarterbacks?
top 15, and it's quarterbacks, not just one quarterback. Right?
By position room is what I was getting at.
Yeah, by position room, basically. And that's kind of, like comparing them nationally, not within the conference, because there's individual conference rankings too. There's not a lot of talent in there. So it goes with the thing with the media, like who in their right mind would pick them higher than 12?
I don't think there's any expectation. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at a team that feels bowl eligible-ish, that's where they should be. They're in that mix.
Right. And if you were going to pick them higher or lower for that, I don't know what the heck you base that on, because it's not like it's totally bereft of talent. But when you look at the preseason all conference teams, like, there's 4 levels, at least in the Phil Steele.
Mm-hmm.
Badgers have like 3 guys on there, and one of them is Atticus Bertrams. Right?
Yes.
Like, and that's just something that nobody in Badger Nation is accustomed to. I mean, at least, even in years you'd have like Braylon Allen. It'd be like a 4th team, like one of the 8 top running backs.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have at least something in there. And this year there's just really not. So I think I've been kicking this around, and how this has to work in order for it to be a success is they have to be on a shock the world kind of thing, and it's I think of the I don't think the Badgers were like this, but Iowa has always been like this. When the expectations are high, they wind up 8-5, or something like that. And then when the expectations are low, then they wind up 10-3, or you know what I mean? And they're back in the day, the BCS conversation, or picked by several to win the West, or you know what I mean? Like the expectations when they're high, they usually underachieve them, and when the expectations are low, they always overachieve them. And like Wisconsin fans of Wisconsin, like for the past 25 years, like hold the program, like nobody's used to that. Like this is like uncharted territory especially for I graduated in 95. I'm 52 years old. I don't remember anything like this.
Well, I mean, there were some Alvarez years between the 2 Rose Bowl runs that were middle of the road.
Yeah, there were. But in between those Rose Bowl runs, you had Ron Dane. And after the Rose Bowl runs, you had like the top recruiting classes ever, and Shoebox, and like even the year when they didn't go to the bowl, which is, what was it, 22, I think, right? They still had like off of that team, there were like 10 guys drafted, or 11. You know what I mean? Or even over a couple drafts. These last couple years, I mean, this past draft had 2 7th rounders.
Yeah.
Like nobody's used to this. Like nobody is used to this.
Okay.
So,
that's a fair point. That you feel like the roster is, if before the issue was they weren't clicking, so to speak, you felt like there were pieces there, they just weren't working together. Now you just feel like they're bereft of pieces. Is that the idea?
Well, you think of like after 2008, or even after 07.
Mm-hmm.
And 07 was like very underperforming, but they brought a lot back. And then 08 was even more underperforming. And that was pretty dark, but I mean, even still, there were so many people on that team that wound up being the core of 2009. Even off of that team, I think that was the year they had, I think it was 4 4th round picks.
Mhm.
there was still some juice there. And then, 2012 is the same thing. You had Travis Frederick or Rob Avenstein. I mean, you had people that were not only drafted but went on to long NFL careers. That 2012 team had Monty Ball and James White.
Uh-huh.
There was still a lot there. I think even in 2012, that was Monty Ball's best statistical season.
I don't
And
remember.
even though they lost 2 really tough games in overtime against Ohio State and Penn State, they still went to the Big Ten championship.
Well, they went to the Big Ten championship because Ohio State couldn't go.
No, I know that, but that still topped it off, and they dropped 70 points and
Yeah.
rushed for 600 plus yards in a championship game, and then went to yet another Rose Bowl. Like it's not like this. It just wasn't like this.
What
And you
you-
come back. Well, hold on, just real quick, because the other top off of that is that between this team now that's gonna go to battle this year and last year's team, I mean, would you say during any of those times how much the roster and the depth chart especially looks so much different than the previous year?
Again, well, the big thing there is you're losing 20 additional players every year to a portal. Don't forget that, right? Like that's a big
I'm not forgetting
portion
that,
of it.
but like if even Iowa has like a transfer quarterback that everybody's hyped about, you know what I mean? Like they're in the last couple of years during the transfer portal era, it's not like they've knocked it out of the park.
Well, that's my point. Well, I mean, to say Iowa's I think Iowa is hyped because they feel like they're functioning. I think if the Badgers were 8-4 last year and looked functional, people would be hyped. Like I don't think.
Yeah, you do think so?
I think you're maybe layering sort of malaise on top of, or like interweaving
Folks can't see me
malaise.
nodding. Yes.
Yes, you're interweaving malaise and sort of objective talent evaluation, for lack of a better term, which I'm not quite saying that, but
Sure.
directionally, that's what I mean. And by the way, before, I don't know if you meant, well, Monty Ball had the most quantity in 2012 because they couldn't throw.
Yeah, so,
But
yeah, no doubt
maybe
about it.
that's
Yeah.
what you meant. But all right, so I get what you're getting at. And my thinking, because I think it ties into what you're saying, is how would I roadmap a season that exceeds these sort of bowl eligibility level expectations? And
Correct.
so
Yes. That's
I
the project. Yeah.
I started to puzzle over it a little bit, and I started to look back at prior teams and look at this past season's team and say, like, what were the issues with this team,
Mhm.
and what do they need just to be? They need to be better, and what's the pathway to do that with the fewest roadblocks, right? And the thing that jumped out in my head, the team that last year, in recent memory, this team felt most similar to, I would say, was 2018.
Sure.
There are some differences.
And talk about a team that came in with a lot of expectations, right?
Yeah. I mean, for people who don't remember, that's a team that finished the regular season 7-5 with a much easier schedule than you're going to see this year, or I would probably argue is as the same as last year. They had ranked teams on the schedule, but they had a rough season. Then they got Miami in a bowl game who was completely checked out. That was the Pinstripe Bowl year. So
Right.
That was a team that could have been 7-6 if Miami was in the game. Looks a lot like this team. What was the issue with it? It was unspectacular quarterback play from Alex Hornibrook that everyone kind of, everybody was tired of him by the end of the year. Was he better than Braden Locke? For sure. But you had that issue.
He also had Cone start his first couple games too.
Yep.
And against Northwestern and Penn State, he was not ready for prime time.
And he wasn't. That was Baby Deer Cone, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
So you had unspectacular quarterback play through 2018. The big difference you had on the offensive side of the ball, you had this guy named Jonathan Taylor who ran for 2,000 yards, who probably gave them, you could argue, he won them Purdue, the triple overtime.
Yes.
He swings that team to 7-5 versus a 6-6. Like there was almost like, oh my gosh, you can lay these teams next to each other and you can see the differences that are there that got them to a slightly better record. On the defensive side of the ball, you had not a great defense. Like this was Andrew Van Ginkel with 6 sacks. This is a team that, interestingly enough, this doesn't mean anything, but I did think it was kind of funny. In 2018, do you know how many sacks they had? Take a guess.
2018?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I don't know. 15, 16, 17?
They had 19.
Yeah.
Do you know how many they had this past season, 2024? Do you remember? Because they've talked about it some, but I don't know.
10?
17.
9?
I know it felt like that,
Yeah,
right? But the guy who led the team in sacks was Christian Allegro with 3. And then in 2018, you had Andrew Van Ginkel with 5.5, and then a bunch of guys with 2 and 3. That was the last year of Connolly and Edwards. You had better inside linebacker play. I mean, just straight up better linebacker play. And you did have Bond, who was young at the time, and Van Ginkel sort of as edge guys who are better than what they had this year. And it's like, okay, that was just enough to nudge them over. But
Van Ginkel was hurt, and I think that was Leonard's first year as the coordinator too, right? Or second year? I don't know. First year, second. Anyway,
yeah. I mean, but
it was very transitional, and I remember
transitional.
like Adrian Martinez cutting them up.
Yeah. So
the Nebraska game.
A good way to think of it, they gave up 22.6 points per game that year. This last year, the Badgers gave up 23.1. There's probably half a point difference because of TJ Edwards and Ryan Connolly versus the delta of what they have this year.
Sure.
But again, I'm like, oh my gosh, these teams look very similar. Now, what did they follow that up with, right? You got Jack Cohn to play very solid football, right? Unspectacular, but solid quarterback play. You don't need anything great there. And you, again, still had Jonathan Taylor rushing for 2,000 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at this team and I say, okay, can Billy Edwards, and I think this is kind of like what you're looking at as a ceiling, can Billy Edwards be 2019 Jack Cohn?
Sure.
I feel like having watched, again, sitting there looking at that Maryland stuff, I'm like, I get why they wanted him. I still understand why they wanted him. I don't know if he's going to be great, but I get what the game plan there is. And I don't mean the physical X's and O's. I mean, like, I get the concept of why this guy fits your offense and what he wants to do and how you want to use him. So, okay, if you want to exceed expectations, there's piece number 1. Number 2, how do you replace the Jonathan Taylor factor, right? Well, the Jonathan Taylor isn't on this team. Don't get yourself crazy. But
he's not on a lot of teams, though.
You're kind of hoping, like, if Dylan Jones does the breakout, that's sort of being predicted. Not predicted, but sort of like, that's the way the narrative points
projected?
to. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like, you sort of say, like, oh, okay, this guy is taking the reins as the number 1 running back, and he and Dupree do something with it. You need Dylan Jones to be a guy, and Dupree in there in that mix to be these sort of like 6 yards plus per carry guy. Like, that's what the offense needs. They need a running back to cover up a lot of their warts. Because right now, like, that's the roadmap forward, is just find a way to run the ball and kind of get yourself into the 30 point per game-ish range. And if your offense can stay on the field enough, you can find a way to some scores, right? You can find a way to keep a defense that I think no matter what is not going to be spectacular off the field as much as you can, and maybe just control the ball that way. I look at the defensive side of the ball, again, going back to 2019.
But before you do that, but because I'd have to throw in there the difference between Grimes and Longo.
Sure.
Just in the way they run offense and that sort of thing. Well, I mean, if you're going to talk about possession and you're going to talk about drives and
that's all part of it.
So
right?
I would say it's better equipped to do that.
Potentially.
Right?
I mean, that's the road. I mean, that is the roadmap. I do think that's kind of what they're looking at, is an offense that can grind more, isn't going to be predicated on chunk plays that it never seemed to take, right? That's what he's hoping for. I mean, Fickell said himself, I can't get an elite quarterback. Like, this offense doesn't work without an elite quarterback. So this is, okay, how do we work around?
So other question on that, and then this might be a little granular, because this is maybe jumping the gun a little bit, because this is one of the worry points, I think. And if you're going to compare 18 and 19, because the one thing that 18 and 19 had was a dude named Jake Ferguson.
We'll get to that.
Who was integral to the running game, and the tight ends are pretty important for the running game.
We're going to get to that.
So, yeah, okay.
All right. I'm staying on my...
Like I said, jumping the gun a little bit.
So, defensive side of the ball, you got to look at the flip side of it, because the defense has to get somewhat better. You look at that team in 2019. Do you remember who the secondary was for that team? For the opener? It was, I'll tell you, you don't have to, because I can't remember.
I know, but I'm kind of angry with myself that I can't.
It was for the opener. It was Scott Nelson,
yes,
Reggie Pearson, and then the other at the 3 corners were Caesar Williams, Faion Hicks, and Rashad Wildgoose. In the first game, I think it was the first game of South Florida, Scott Nelson tears his ACL.
Yes.
So you have, for the season, the balance of snaps in the secondary are Burrell, Pearson, Eric Burrell, Reggie Pearson, Caesar Williams, Faion Hicks, and Rashad Wildgoose. It is solid, but it's not spectacular, right? So again, looking at this roadmap, and especially with, we'll touch on in a bit, with the loss of Nizer Forkerine, presumably, can you get something similar with, what's it going to be? It's going to be Hallman, Latimer, Zachman, Austin Brown, and then some mix of, I guess, like Johnny Hill is my guess.
Yeah,
as the other,
Hill,
like
Agard.
A field guy. But I think Agard is
Matt Young, I think.
I'm
too.
sorry, I think Agard is a field guy. Sorry, I meant boundary. I think
Mhm.
Hill has been the one that's on the boundary side. But
Mhm.
somebody out there who remembers better, you can correct me. But it's like, so what are you hoping for? You have to hope that Johnny Hill, who was an in and out starter at Miami, it clicks, right? And you get functional play out of him, because I think, well, let me ask it in two pieces. I feel like Zachman and Brown are probably as good as Burrell and Pearson, right? Wouldn't you say? I think Zachman's.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think probably even better.
Yeah, 'cause I think Zachman is better than any of them, right?
Yeah,
Including-
I think as a safety combo, I think that's as good as they've had.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's better than Scott Nelson.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, maybe Waller was probably better, but
Oh yeah,
he was a little bit more. Well, I shouldn't say probably, he was better, but he was more all over the field, I guess. I don't know.
yeah. So
I feel as like those two are as good as any they've had in the past 6, 7, 8 years.
So then when you go
That
to
combo.
corner, right? This is younger Caesar Williams, right? This isn't like senior year Caesar Williams, who was a really nice,
He's pretty good.
sound cornerback,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I think Hallman, if he can get the tackling thing back this year,
Which is amazing because if you see him, he's a mini Hulk.
mini is the key word. If he kind of cleans up a bit in that department, I think he's definitely better than Williams, Hicks, or Wildgoose, right? I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
Trayon Hicks is definitely a better tackler any day of the week, but
The cover man.
I mean, I think he's a better cover guy. We don't know what Latimer is, and we don't know what Hill is. So it really comes down to, what do you think is there?
Yeah.
And are we looking at, something good? I don't know. But that's the weakest point you have in the secondaries. Those two guys need to be something. I think this conversation is different and a little less tenuous if Nizer Forkerine is still there. But that's, again, the roadmap. These guys don't have to be great. They just need to hold on enough. And that turns to the last part, which is the thing the Badgers need. When we were talking about the sack numbers before, the Badgers, again, in 2018, had 19 sacks. Do you know how many they had in 2019?
More than 19.
51.
Well, that was also the season. What did they have? It was 4 shutouts.
Yeah. And they
Yeah.
had Zach Bond with 12 and a half. They had Chris,
Yeah.
or really, I think if you ever want to argue for the genius of Jim Leonard, sort of that narrative, it was the use of Chris Orr that year, like to really play to his strengths and minimize his weaknesses. He had 11 and a half sacks, just sort of being that like delayed
Wow.
rusher up the middle, if you remember.
Yeah, sure.
But I think the real hero in that story is that defensive line. The guys who were playing the snaps were Isaiah Loudermilk, Garrett Rand, Matt Henningsen, and Keanu Benton, right? Young Keanu
It's a
Benton, mind
pretty
you.
pretty good set.
That was young Benton. That wasn't like upper end Keanu, but that was him playing because Bryson Williams got hurt. And that season ended up putting him ahead of Bryson Williams. When Bryson Williams came back, he really didn't get his starting job back. I mean, Keanu was 50-50 with him and then passed.
Yeah.
So the reality was, what was it? They had good defensive linemen that did their jobs. Like when Garrett Rand is, in your, at least in my mind, the bottom of those 4,
Right.
he would have been playing 50 snaps this past
Yeah.
year. I mean, they would have played him until he collapsed. So
Right.
that's
And-
really
and the other three drafted and still playing.
yeah. Is Henningsen still playing? I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah.
But so
I mean,
that
a
one,
D-line rotation guy for sure. But yeah, I'm 99% sure he's still playing.
okay. But your point is still valid. I wasn't sure because I almost said it myself. And I'm like, I don't know about Matt Henningsen. But for this team, again, I'm using that template as a model because I think they had really similar problems.
Yeah, I like it.
The Badgers need the line to hit, right? They need a hit combination between Suggs, Perkins, Peterson, Walker, even Dylan Johnson. Maybe when Colton was talking about like Jamel Howard, like somebody, like they need some guys to be able to give them 25 to 30 snaps so that they can get more pressure, not necessarily from those guys, but they can at least make it harder for teams to defend and they can get some kind of pressure. They need like 2 Elijah Hill level guys, maybe 3. Is that
Probably
realistic?
3.
I don't know, but that's the roadmap. And that's how I come up with exceeding expectations. That's a long, pregnant pause to say, like, if this team is going to beat it, I think that's the most viable way it does it. It's going to have weaknesses, but they can figure out ways to scheme around them. That's
Sure.
really, I mean, that's what every coaching staff is, but like, that's really the crux and the key to this thing is if they can find a way to get around the fact that they're going to be hunting in the cornerback market, in the weird transfer market right after media days, because they have till August 5th to take one of those specially designated guys. Maybe there's a body out there they can get.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's true.
Something like that. But I mean, that's not going to be anybody that's going to wow the world. I mean, we got to be realistic about it.
It's an experienced body.
Yeah. I mean, and how many experienced bodies aren't going to be in the 105 for teams, which that's the part you got to remember, because it's got to be one of those guys that was, this player wouldn't be here if we had to be at 105 type of thing. So it'll be interesting to see. Do you have any thoughts on exceeding expectations or anything I'm missing?
I do. Because I keep, because even for last year, the Alabama scenario was, they lost a quarterback and they hung with them for a half. It was just, it was a couple big plays and Bama became Bama.
Yeah.
And it was, if they played against Oklahoma, Jalen Milroe, that might have been a different game. And I just kept feeling like last year they were so close, like just so close. And I said it all year. And you think of the Penn State game, that they were winning at halftime. And they didn't look like crap. It's just all of a sudden, and they knocked Aller out of the game. You'd think, and like you said, you had crappy quarterback play, but it's not like they were like didn't belong on the same field as Penn State or Alabama. And then it was such a letdown, it seemed like, between those two, just the way the schedule set up, that it was such an enormous letdown. But they managed to get themselves back up, and they were this close to beating Oregon. And for whatever Oregon's reasons were for playing the way they did, it had as much to do with that. But they were so close in that one too. And then you look at the letdown was even more enormous. So I think what I'm getting at is they did that with that team. And I think we feel like, even though we don't know, that this team, talent-wise, coaching-wise, like we feel like there's going to be improvement over last year, at least in terms of how they play, execution, whatever. Right? The schedule is tougher than it was last year, but we feel like we're putting a better team on the field each time. And if you did that last year with that group and that offense and that coaching and that quarterback they should have beat USC, and that was like a game where they seemed to check out after something went wrong, after the Tyrell Henry muff punt. But they were doing just fine in that game too for the first half into the second quarter.
Yeah.
And what I'm really getting at is the momentum shifts game to game, week to week. That's the thing where you could tell if they were checked out. And I don't know what that's going to be like. And once they play Alabama, and I've been saying, like, all I want from that is to not get blown out. But I don't know. I think I'm being a little bit hyperbolic with that. But almost every Tide fan that I talk to is like, well, this is another year to get them. Like, they're more worried about it than I am. So,
right.
And what if that game comes down to the last possession, or if they win? Because I feel like if they were to win that game, that's the kind of momentum that will carry them through. Because I don't think they're going to get blown out by Ohio State. I don't think they're going to get blown out by any. I just don't. I don't see the Iowa situation happening again. But by the time you get through that October, if they don't win one of those games, I think they're screwed.
Well,
from a momentum and because it's not like, okay, fine, like the hard part of your schedule is over. But if you're looking at your formula for success, every one of those teams except Maryland has an offensive line with multiple NFL prospects, including Washington. It's just the schedule does not let up. And if they go through October, and I could see a scenario where they play the first 3 close but lose, and have to get up and get up and get up and get up by the time that fourth one rolls around, and that's really what happened last year. Now, how much difference this set of players makes and how much different, this set of coaches on the offensive side. And I shouldn't even say set of coaches because it's all the same except for the coordinator. So I guess that's a good transition to what can go wrong. But that's really how I see it, is they have to have like the shock the world mentality. And if they can, even if they say, I'm worried that if they do get blown out by Alabama, it can go downhill really fast. But if they play Alabama close and if they play a 4-quarter game, if they lose, okay, that's one thing. And I think it would be good momentum to go into the month of October. And if they can pick out a couple of those games and win one or two, everything's different.
Well, I think to your point, the team can't end October with 5 losses, or they're just going to fold again. I think what your point, because I don't know if I'm as I wouldn't use the word optimistic, but maybe I'm not as charitable on some of it, because my concern was less X's and O's and more like they fold, right? And maybe if he gets a win in one of these games, do they not fold? Because I think you can argue they've been potentially, you could argue like, look, that Oregon game is something, they were this far from knocking that team off, to your point, that, okay, they almost had a signature win this team hasn't had in ages. So, okay. But then as soon as they didn't get it, they're just like the floor falls out. I don't know. I mean, I guess what you're saying, the proposition is if they can just get themselves a signature win, it just sort of like puts some air back in that balloon and they can push forward.
And like I said, I'm basing a lot of that on last year because I
mean,
the Oregon game, which they had already taken a lot of freaking punches. The Penn State game was bruising, but then to go to Iowa and play like they did in a rivalry game like that, but they still managed to get back up for that Penn State game and damn near beat. Like, how much different would a season would have been last year if they won that game and beat the number 1 team in the country?
Yes.
I just finished the poll today, from the Wisconsin site of the best games since 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And, the 2 finalists were beating Ohio State in 2010 and the Big Ten championship game in 2011. The Ohio State beating number 1 was winning 76% to 24%.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If that would have happened, all the narratives and all the energy would have been completely different, and they were so close to that.
Okay.
And you could tell, like, the last 2, I mean, they had nothing left.
Yeah, no, tank was
just
empty.
Had nothing left.
Okay, so let's do...
Winning cures everything, right? Basically.
It does.
Yeah.
Let's do the negative side. And here, I'll give you again, I'm mostly looking at it, honestly, from roster composition and, development type of perspective. And sure. I think if you're going to say the Badgers fall short in 2025, the canary in the coal mine for that narrative was Kevin Haywood's anterior cruciate ligament.
I know.
Because I want to say...
That's a kick in the balls, man.
From, August 15th of a year ago, that guy was going to be the starting left tackle for the Wisconsin... Like, they knew it. I mean, maybe not even August. It might have been at the end of spring camp for all we know. Like, that guy was going to be the starting left tackle. So he is playing special teams. So we're burning a red shirt for this guy. This is what the coaches are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's ready to go. He is what we need. He will be the best option we have at left tackle. And, based on, I think it was some stuff Jesse Temple put out last week, right now it looks like it's some sort of mixture of Leighton Nelson, who is coming off an injury and really hasn't gotten up to speed yet. Davis Heidson, who was a Central Michigan transfer, who wasn't great there, quite frankly. And if I was to guess, he is there because the price is right. And then the last one is Joe Brunner, who's playing out of position and then sort of opens up things on the inside. So if this thing goes sideways, they can't get the run game off the ground. And Billy Edwards, though he's perfectly used to it from his time in Maryland, is not going to have a whole heck of a lot of protection from the tackle spot. So, I mean, the positive news is Billy Edwards knows how to handle that at the very least, or at least he's not unfamiliar with it. I don't know if he can handle it, but he's not unfamiliar with it.
Well, it exposes him to injury as well.
So that gives me concern that somehow this run game can get off the ground and you're going to be able to stretch this thing. Like, I guess theoretically, if you're running wide zone, well, they're just cutting up more, but then defenses can kind of shade to that and it gets a little tricky.
Well, you need tight ends.
Number 2 on my list. The other canary, you could say, in the coal mine is Tanner Koziol leaving after a week for whatever reason, because all we heard was how this offense is very tight end centric and Jeff Grimes uses the tight end and they put their eggs in the tight end basket in the transfer market. That is certainly obvious to see. And they lost him and they have replaced him with an FCS transfer who's undersized, right? Not necessarily that he was going to fill that position, but that's how they filled the loss of talent on the roster. Like, you can't argue that they've replaced that. So it's going to be very tricky. And this offense doesn't have a tight end who can set an edge. And it becomes, is it Jackson Aker as a fullback? And you're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff. And, a single tight end, 2 back. I don't know.
Do you think a Steck can do it?
I mean, that's what you need, right? You're going to need somebody to step
when you
up
think
there.
of, a Jackson McGowan,
no.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't know, like that body. There isn't like a what's his name, Xander
Neville.
Xander Neville.
No.
Or you think of like the 2012 when they had like 4 guys that could do that. That were big bodies.
Yeah, so I think an offense that is going to be predicated around tight end play and running the ball, losing a left tackle and the crown jewel tight end in your offense is this could be rough.
I will say this though about the Koziel thing is it sounded to me like I don't think he was going to be much of a blocker though either.
Okay, but you just took a big piece out of the offense. Next piece of it, this thing going south, and this is losing Nizer. There is no plan B for Nizer Fork. I mean, Fickle was straight up asked about it and shut the question.
It's so weird.
It started like getting all hostile about it. So
do you think their lawyers misled them? Like, just like as far as like the chances of success?
Max, that's a question for you, not me.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Because it just seems, I don't know if you would have gotten another corner beyond Hill. Presumably you would have. Well, that's another one too with that's where the loss of Lucas really hurts too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one. I just, you're looking for a guy who was a rotational corner at Miami to step in, or, I mean, literally this team has 7 corners right now, right? Mm-hmm. If you take Forkery out, you have a first string, a second string, and a spare right now. Like, it is a thin room. And you're looking at a freshman to step in and maybe a freshman steps in and can play 15 snaps early. Like, maybe there's an Xavier Lucas there, but I think it's a tall ask to hope for that to happen 2 years in a row. So that is how that goes sideways. And then the last bit is they don't figure out a way to generate enough pressure to offset those losses in the secondary. And the tricky part, and this is where I think for all of us, this is the one thing we really haven't talked about much, which is I still don't have a sense for what the defense is going to look like. I have a far better sense of what the offense is going to look like, and I don't understand the defense. Because right now, if I'm looking for that linebacker-sized edge rusher, there's one guy on the team who I think, based on guys that I've seen, and I'm not including Nick Clayton because he's an undersized guy, is Sebastian Cheeks. I don't know, again, and Clayton we haven't seen, and it just sounds like he's a package guy, but like a guy who could be more of an every down type. Right now, it sounds like it's just Sebastian Cheeks because Peterson is bigger and also just wasn't very good at it. Aaron Witt is not that player. Is it Christian Allegro moving out like to the edge? Well, we saw them do that in the past. I don't know. Willer's down the rotation from the sounds of things, and he's bigger. So It has to be the thing we just don't, and this is where it's an unknown, which is whatever tweaks they do to this defense, don't fix it. That would be how it goes sideways. And it just continues to not be good because in a lot of ways, you have the new offensive coordinator. Yes, it's the same guys on the defense, but you can kind of argue this almost feels like a change in coordinator because it's almost like a change in scheme. Not quite. You're turning the dials all the way on, your existing stereo, but you are trying to blast the bass without buying a subwoofer, I guess, if I'm going to make a really weird metaphor there.
I think that works.
Yeah, who knows? But I think people get my point there. I don't know. I don't know that you can argue that that's going to work. So this team ends up with an uncomfortable defensive scheme that doesn't accomplish what they want. And then injuries / portal attrition on offense sends them south, and tying into your narrative, you have a really brutal October and everybody is checking out. And you're looking at a team that maybe beats Middle Tennessee State, Maryland, Miami of Ohio, and is heading into November needing to win 3 games to make a bowl. And it could be bad.
Well, fortunately, they get Maryland when they do, because I
Yeah.
think if they got Maryland later and they lost, I wouldn't pencil that in as a win. It's not like Maryland's awful, you know. You know what I mean? It's
Well, the
it's
only
not
thing I'd say is
Purdue.
last year, Maryland got worse as the year went on. So,
They did. No, that's true. That's true. They did beat USC. I don't know.
yeah. So one
But
doesn't know there.
here's one for you too. You talk about unknowns and you talk about defense. How much of an X factor do you have Tackett Curtis down as being?
Not much.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like
Well,
that
I feel like he is, but
I feel like that is largely okay. He's healthy now. Okay. But I felt like his issue was more a size thing. And maybe he's on the edge for all I know. And they just don't call it that. Okay. I mean, he just to me looks like everything I've seen of him so far with the Badgers is, and honestly, it's the same thing with Allegro. Just Allegro is a little bit bigger. They both just feel like edge guys playing on the inside.
Allegro is, and having seen him in person, like he's got some decent size.
Yeah.
Whereas you're right about Curtis, and I don't know if Curtis. I don't know. I guess like in the fantasy world, I can see him as like Chris Portland light, but I just those are your top 2 guys,
Correct.
and if they're not effective, or if they're just I don't know, I guess out of sync. To your point, I don't know what the hell the defense looks like either. The front 7, I don't.
I mean, that's sort of that I really do think is the most under-discussed thing is that we don't really understand what the defenses look like. And, trying to understand it, like and this isn't a knock on Colton, but it was like more like trying to tease that out. I didn't feel like I got it because I don't know that he necessarily I don't think people watching it understand what it is quite yet.
I think so too. And I don't know. That just whole coherence thing seems to be a problem in the Fickle era in general.
Oh, we'll have to see. So
Yeah.
all right, there's our pathways. Do you have anything else, or mine, I should say? Do you have anything else on the downside that you think I didn't touch on?
No, not really. I mean, I just go back to what I said before: is that there just seems to be no juice, and
Yeah.
and it's the one thing I did want to say, kind of on that topic, was I would love to know, or I would love to talk to someone who knows ball from like the national perspective and who knows these people. Like Phil Steele actually talks to these guys and he's known them for years, and I'd really love to know what their perspective is in a bar off the record and to figure out what the deal is. Because I mean, Luke Fickell was a star coming in. You know what I mean? And I guess to the extent they all are, but he was the top guy.
He was in that top group of names you hear. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't really like empty either. I mean, the Cincinnati to the playoff, and you know what I mean? I would that's kind of the thing that I would just love to know about, because and again, I go back to winning games and losing games during the month of October, because if they don't get through that, it's no matter what the economics are and how much they gave him and how much the buyout is, 90% of Badger Nation's going to want that to go.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly. But
Right.
I mean, and I say rightly or wrongly because he turned around with a lighter schedule, but like, what has there been to show you that it will turn around if it's like that? If there is no turnaround this year.
Well, I mean, if it's on the downside, and by turnaround, the thing I'll be curious about to that question is, how is a 7-5 season perceived, right? Like, let's say he hits 7-5, to get 7 wins, he's beating, what is it? Miami, Ohio, Middle Tennessee State, Maryland. That gets you 3. Indiana 4, Illinois 5, let's say Minnesota 6, and Washington 7. Right? Like, let's just pick the easiest games theoretically. Just
the quote easiest games. I know.
Let's just call it that. Like, but I mean, also, I don't know. Maybe Washington is significantly better than people expect, and Iowa's worse. Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever the 7 games are, he wins the 7 easiest games, but then he's not beating the top 10 teams, whatever they shake out to be. What are people's takeaways from that? Right. Like, as this would be clearly that, I mean, it would be the hardest schedule the Badgers have ever played as it stands right now. Would that make people happy? Or at least would it buy patience and give people something you can point at and say, look, there's progress. Even though it's a 7-5, that's a really good 7-5.
Right.
I
It would
don't
with
know.
me. It would with me.
I know that, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about, at large, or even an 8-4. And
I
that means
think
they
the reasonable fans would have to with the 7-5.
Well, let's even go
I
one
think
step
so.
further. Go to 8
Yeah.
and 4. That means they win a game, a premier game. Maybe it's
One of
just
the- one of the
Iowa,
biggies, yeah.
but maybe it's
Sure.
Iowa, and Iowa's 15 in the country, right?
Sure.
But that means they win Iowa, they win Minnesota, they beat Illinois, that kind of thing. Like, does that come off like, because that to me feels a lot like, say, 2015. That feels a lot like the 2015 season, even though that record was a lot better. That team wasn't very good, but people were pretty happy with, like, wow, look at how he came in and steadied the ship. Would this get, now granted, he has the baggage of 2 kind of misguided, messy seasons. Does that, how much benefit of the doubt? I mean, they're not firing him off that. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're firing him, period. But what I'm getting at is, what is the perspective on it? And I'm curious to know what
Yeah.
that is.
I think if it was 8-4, I think that would go a long way, especially say if you had a Christian Allegro
Right.
or Austin Brown or Dylan Jones or Eugene Hilton.
Somebody go off.
You like somebody just really have an all league caliber. Vinny Anthony, even, if they
Right.
just had an all league caliber season, and you point to some stars. And if it's 8-4, I think most people would. I think you'd have to be really nitpicky, and I think you'd have to be really on the negative side not to feel good about things, especially if it's a guy like Allegro or Hilton that are likely to come back if they have that kind of season.
Yeah.
I say likely to come back. God only knows. If Ohio State throws $5 million at Eugene Hilton, if that happens, I don't know. But I would think if you have that and you have some stars emerge, oh yeah, I think I would say Fickle's righted the ship if that happens.
Okay.
And the
for
thing
sure.
is too, like, I don't consider that like totally out of the realm of possibility either. I like when they play Michigan. They play Michigan off the bye in game number 5. Like, I think that's one where you go into that. And if anybody saw Michigan play Texas last year, I mean, they looked like crap. And how the hell they beat Ohio State again, God only knows, but they look like crap against Indiana. And they have a bunch of clouds around their stuff too. And they have to replace like 10 draft picks again. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I do.
I just don't think that it's not out of the realm of possibility. And I think if you can get a win, you can get a win or 2 in October. I think things look a lot different, especially if you have some guys really emerge as star level players.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So before we wrap up our 30-minute show that's creeping up on an hour,
Mhm.
let's do a couple things. One is the question we've sort of danced around here a bit, but I did want to get a little bit more explicit about.
Well, we teased it.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the second question.
Oh, really? You still want to talk about Nizer?
How bad do you think that loss is?
Honestly, it didn't. I might be in minority, but it's bad, but it's not catastrophic.
Okay.
I think you feel much more strongly about it than I do.
I
but
do.
I don't. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel like it's catastrophic.
I think they have too many at that position. It doesn't even have numbers. Like, you gotta have like 9 corners. Kind of crazy. They have 7 corners right now.
You know,
Maybe
it-
there's
it
gonna
really-
be some,
No, I agree.
and it's 3 true freshmen. So
Yeah, and I also feel like an Agard or a Latimer could emerge as, I feel really good about those guys. Maybe that's totally unfounded, but they need a little bit of luck in that area.
Yeah, but I mean, Agard is
for a couple guys to be better than you thought.
Agard was not in the rotation with the ones. Latimer was the nickel. Okay, maybe they move him out and he becomes the field and somebody else is playing nickel. But I mean, it's like you're looking at a true freshman and
Who's the other true freshman?
Washington hasn't arrived yet, but it's Skeins and
Skeins is who I'm thinking of too. Yeah,
who knows? Those were summer guys. So, or actually, sorry,
Sojourn
not summer
Shelton
guys.
did
They
it?
were spring guys. I hear you, but the thing is, coming into this moment, they were not guys pushing. So we'll see. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Like I said, maybe I'm wrong, but I just haven't felt. I was actually more surprised that there wasn't a plan B,
Yes.
and they looked at the fact that the players were winning everything. And if you go to the where was it? Where did it start? In the Western District of Wisconsin. You know, as federal district courts go, it's a pretty liberal one. But you are on the Seventh Circuit, which is, as you saw, a little bit, because a lot of their argument was based on like fairness.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right? I mean, that was the argument that, yeah, he lost his dad, didn't play, and he's losing out on, and I like a lot of it was really based on like fairness as opposed to sound, strictly enforceable legal principles, which the NCAA had that on its side.
Yeah, see, I'm out of my depth.
Yeah, that was the part of that whole thing that really surprised me. And that's why I said before is I don't know, just as a lawyer who's been doing this for a long time, especially as an in-house lawyer, there is a tendency to kind of fall in love with, your position in the case, it just seems like something like that because it didn't seem like a plan.
Okay. Yeah, they definitely didn't.
Yeah,
I think
seems odd to me.
For me, if in 18 months, we're doing a Luke Fickell postmortem type thing, or I guess it would be like 14 months, when he's gone mid-season type of thing in 2026. Yeah. Like, I do think, not to reuse the phrase, but the canary in the coal mine is going to be the blind faith moment, like the weird Forkerine stuff. But anyways, I don't want to go over anymore. Last question, which is what we've been teasing all along. This is
what you want to talk about.
Yes. My question is this. What is the point of conference media days anymore, right? Because I feel like back in the day, if you went back 15 years, let's say, 10 years, you would learn about, well, this guy left the team over the summer, or this guy tore his ACL playing pickup basketball, or Brian Ramczyk is no longer going to be an Undertaker. Or no, he wasn't an Undertaker. Whatever it was he was doing. Like you'd find
that was Jacob Pedersen.
Yeah, that was Jacob Pedersen. I know. But
no, Ramczyk was an electrician apprentice.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Like these things are these sort of guys. You're like, who and where? And that's where you had to get more color because these teams didn't have in-house media like they do now. And you didn't have a more constant stream of reporting. Yes, you had Mike Lucas and you had...
I'm not going to say 10 years. I would say like before the BTN.
Yes, but I still feel like even in the Christ era, you found out about injuries, season-ending injuries at media day. Whereas nowadays that just gets out. And I think it's more just... And I look at it and I say, like, what is the purpose of media days? One, it's to build hype, right? Yes. It's just to get people talking about it and starting to think about football, which I guess theoretically that's what it's going to do. But two, I think it did serve a purpose with the media where it was, okay, let's put our guys out there and the national guys can come in and Stuart Mandel can sit down and talk to each coach for 10 minutes. Yeah, and what he does is he gets 6 quotes from each coach that as he's writing a story as the season goes on that he can, they always need a quote for something and they can plug it in. Yep. And nowadays it's like, well, all their press conferences are on Zoom. You can watch it there. If you really want to ask a question, they'll get you that person in a way they don't. I mean, I get, obviously my view is kind of biased from the Wisconsin perspective where it was so much more locked down. And so now I'm kind of like, I don't think anything, last year, I don't remember anything coming out of media days that we didn't already know. Because it's like, hey, you want to win the Axe this year? And it's like, yes, I do.
Yeah, maybe.
And you're like, okay, like, great. Like, of course they do. Like, yes, I want to win football. I don't want to lose football game. Like, sure. I just feel like it doesn't have a relevance that it once had. And the experiment, to circle back to the top, this show isn't coming out until after media days. And let's see if something massive, sea-changing comes out that we are, whatever you want to call it, like just ignoring that we don't know is coming and it makes us look stupid, which would be fun.
No, and like I said,
but I don't think it's happening.
I don't want that to be Billy Edwards being on the stage and then when he walks off, he breaks his leg or something like that.
Well, that we can't predict.
But. No, I know. But with the quarterback luck that the Badgers have had, I don't know. Which I feel like that has to change, right?
Yeah.
No, I think the media days thing, it's kind of, I feel like it's like a state fair.
In what way?
Well, it's a carnival. It's it's putting the league on display for the nation to see.
Yeah, fair enough.
And they have all this fun stuff, and they have uniforms and alternate uniforms, and players get to go, and every now and again you get Lane Kiffin say something funny, or you know what I mean. And I just think it's the only time where everybody's together, and all the coaches are on the podium in the same place, and everybody's together. So that's kind of how I see it. I have no issue at all, and I have no expectations of getting any real information, which I guess is kind of, I can see your point on like access to information. And I
Yeah.
think that part of it has certainly got de-emphasized, but the entertainment and carnival state fair value is more. And I'm just going to go to what I said before. It's a lot more fun when your team's not picked 12th.
Again, I don't know if it's that for me. Like, I don't care if the Badgers were picked to finish last. It's more like,
Oh, I know. You would have said this in 2018 too. No,
yeah,
I
like
get it.
I would have said it in 2019,
Yeah.
going into
Sure.
2020, where, everybody
Sure.
put that year aside, but pick a year that's like high expectations. My intrigue level wouldn't be crazy
Yeah.
high because I don't feel like in this environment I'm
Right.
getting anything. Like I'm not
That's-
getting any.
That's the point I'm trying to make. If you want intrigue, forget it. It's not about intrigue. It's about display, and it's about
Okay.
hype. It's about entertainment.
It's to pull
It's
in
not-
the casual fan, you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Fair
and
enough.
just the hype machine to get that thing going. We got, we're going to be in camp, and football is coming.
Yeah, which is a good way to wrap this up. Let's hope for something intriguing for Media Days, because if there is, you and I will come back next week. We've been off for a while.
I'm not hoping. You might be. I am not. To repeat.
But like maybe we get points to discuss. I wouldn't even call it
Sure.
intrigue. But yeah, we're gonna start pivoting towards looking at fall camp. We have been quiet this summer. I did a little homework before to figure out why. Because I'm like, boy, I feel like is it just we don't have things to talk about? But we've sort of have like off-season topics that fall into buckets. Like we have team analysis stuff. Like this show would be sort of a team analysis thing. It's like, how are they good? How are they bad? Or, sort of like 5 things to watch in spring, 5 things to watch in fall. And we still have those. Or, reactions to spring and fall camp, which we've had and we are going to have. I think we had 5 or 6 spring camp shows. Depth charts, all those kinds of things. We still have
Sure.
those. And then we have usually like 1 or 2 special projects a year. So it was like Fickle and Fourth Down, I think was 2 years ago. The in-state recruiting stuff, was that last year? When did we do all the
Oh,
stuff
that
on
was a while
Wisconsin?
ago.
Yeah, so like the in-state recruiting in Wisconsin, but like different seasons where it's like you have one sort of show that has just a kind of a topic you can dive in on.
No, the one we did 2 years. I thought the Fickle Fourth Down one might have been last year, but I thought the one before that was official visits.
And then the official official visits, that stuff,
Yeah.
like all those kinds of things. And then even this year, I would argue like watching every snap of Billy Edwards at Maryland and Danny O'Neill at San Diego
Sure.
State fall in that. So like those
Sure.
things were all there. And I was like, well, why are we kind of like locked out on content this year? And I realize, and it's what happened last year, it's finding people to talk about other teams. The big picture stuff has really fallen off, and it's
Right.
because all these media companies have gotten really siloed. Like the athletic guys go on athletic shows, and this one and that one. Like we could find fan
I
people.
wouldn't
but,
say that because Dockerman's on the Iowa shows.
But you get my point. I'm
Yeah.
making a,
No,
but
I
he's
know.
also a national guy. He's not the Iowa guy anymore. So I kind of feel like, that's really kind of where it's been coming from. I've been scratching my head. But so anyways, everybody knows because we have been off. We did pump the brakes on the Patreon for another month. I did it yesterday. You probably got a notification in your Patreon. If you didn't, you're now getting notified by us. So it won't hit you for the next 30 days either, because we got money in the bank, and once the season sort of starts to roll, then we don't
Right.
worry about
Well,
it. So
just not a lot of content.
there's not a lot of
It's muddy.
content, but at any rate, we'll be back, and there will be prop bets this year. Don't worry, those aren't going anywhere,
Oh, they are not.
and they're going to get really weird
Oh,
off a
gosh,
5 and 7.
I think
season,
they're going to get really weird.
they gotta get we gotta
They
have
have
something to
to.
watch, because this season,
Yeah.
like to circle back to our over underperform, I am much more in it is very, very, very significantly exceedingly more likely that they are in the underperform category than the overperform, because the overperform was pretty tenuous, because it's, as you said, there's the tight end issue. Like you need a tight end to break out. You need Grant Stack to break out, which I didn't even touch on, something like that. So we'll
Mhm.
see. But
Sure.
maybe something to make the season, other than the scoreboard, interesting to watch would be
lot of unknowns. Yes.
Would be nice. Like, how many times do we see Luke Fickell squatting on the ground looking at the turf, like in the catcher position, looking broken?
Does he bring back the team vest?
I mean, I think that's a given because I've seen team in Brady Collins' tweets. So,
well, that's not Fickell. That's Brady Collins.
I know, but if he's using the terminology, it means that like that's part of the narrative. So we'll see.
Oh,
All right. At any
Good
rate,
prop bet.
let's get the hell out of here, man. It's been a
No, sounds good.
hour.
No, sounds good. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Check and see.
All right. Until the next time, everyone.
All right. Until the next time.
Enjoy the conversation? Head on over to buckaroundpodcast.com to find all the ways to connect with the show, links to our Patreon page, and feeds for every major podcasting platform. We want to thank each and every one of our patrons. You make this podcast possible. This has been The Buck Around, Badger football analysis from a fan perspective.